How do I say goodbye?
So hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom marks the 16th and final chapter of the DCEU. So the question is it any good? Should you see it in theaters? Does it swim or does it sink? We'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review. But first, I want to talk to you in the comments. Let me know if this is a film that you all were excited for, but also share your DCEU experience in the comments below. But going back to Aquaman 2, let me know when you've seen it, what worked, what didn't work, favorite moments, least favorite moments, and if you have seen all 16 DCEU films, share your rankings in the comments below. And also, stick around to the end of this video because I'll be sharing my rankings with you all. But let's talk about it all in the comments section. Man, this is the end of the DCEU. So if you all do not know, if this is your first time coming to the channel, welcome. Hope you're enjoying yourself. I am a lifelong DC fan, but I can admit the DCEU has been a hell of a ride. It has been a roller coaster of a ride. There's some highs, there's some lows, some crazy things that went on this past 10 years, but here we are. I think it's just so funny that we're ending this franchise, this universe, with this sequel to the most profitable film in the DCEU. So again, is it good? Is it bad? Let's start off by talking about the good first. And I want to start off by talking about James Wan, who I'm a big fan of. And just to let you all know, I actually really enjoyed the first Aquaman. Again, you'll see my rankings at the end of this video, but I'm a James Wan fan. And look, James Wan doesn't do trilogies. He doesn't do part 3. So if the DCEU would have continued, I don't think he would have did a part 3 to Aquaman. But I say all that to say this. Knowing that this was the final chapter, probably his last time ever directing this character, listen, for better or for worse, James Wan threw the kitchen sink and everything at this movie. This film, at its best, is when James Wan's creative imagination was completely unleashed. Like, to me, I've always kind of looked at James Wan as like a modern Sam Raimi, especially when he does his like action, big blockbuster films. And I really see his Sam Raimi isms and his James Wan isms in this movie. He knows when to go over the top. He plays within the campy scenes, the lines of dialogue, and just wants to create a fun, adventurous time. This, again, like to what I consider the first Aquaman, and this second one could be said as well. This is a Saturday morning cartoon live action Aquaman movie with this metahuman who can talk to fish. I think we sometimes forget about this kind of the silliness of this character, and I think James Wan knows how to play to the sensibilities of a metahuman that can talk to fish and what comes with that. I think he does a really good job of playing in that sandbox, or should I say playing in that pool of water. He's really having fun with this film because he is playing with his Star Wars toys. Like, for my Star Wars fans, there's definitely a Jabba the Hutt reference in this film. He's playing with Lord of the Rings in this movie. He's even playing with his Avatar toys in this film. James Wan does an excellent job to me of expanding and exploring Atlantis and the surrounding areas and the creatures, and we get to see more of the kingdom's rules and the politics, and it just makes things feel fleshed out. So again, for better or for worse, I applaud James Wan. And to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more, this doesn't affect my opinion or my score of this film, but seriously, I want to applaud James Wan because his efforts really go into making this film. Because if you just think about it, this movie went into production in 2021. So we're coming off the back end of the pandemic. He has to deal with the Amber Heard ramifications. There's obviously things going on with the heads of DC and Warner Brothers. There were the reshoots and all these different things that for most directors probably would have destroyed their career and more or less would have destroyed their film. But James Wan, under all those circumstances, and that was just some of them. Now, that wasn't even half of the stuff that this film went through. I think he did a solid job of putting all this craziness into this film of Aquaman 2. Now, switching gears and talking about the performances, which for the most part I enjoyed, because listen, at the end of the day, we'll talk about it later. The dialogue in this movie isn't that great. Like, the lines that they have to deliver is pretty ridiculous, but this is a testament to the actors, because I really do feel and believe that they believe what their characters are actually saying in these more ridiculous moments. But whether you have Nicole Kidman, who's back as a queen, she's in this movie just as much as she is in the first one, and I like the way they use the queen in this film. I like Nicole Kidman as an actress. You have Temuera Morrison, who is, of course, Arthur's father, and he is really useful in the sense of I really enjoyed the kind of quieter moments of father talking to son about being a father and all the different things that came with it. So I really love their more quiet, intimate scenes. You have Randall Park, Dolph Lundgren, and again, the list goes on. I thought most of the actors, again, they're doing and saying some ridiculous things, but I believe they're acting. But shout out to my man Yahya, because if you all know, it was like 2-3 years ago, he said some really interesting comments about being in superhero movies or whatnot, but I really did enjoy him coming back as the villain Black Manta, who's leveled up this time around, and he plays the villain who's avenging the father's death. And this time around, I put some respect on his name, man, because like I said, he's leveled up and he's a villain, which this is what I love about good villains. He believes he's doing the right thing. He's avenging the death of his father. And look, he's a villain. There's no redemption arc. There's no, okay, maybe, even though I'll talk about some criticism with the whole possession angle that they go with. I love Yahya, and again, he's saying and doing, he's over the top, he's cheesy, he's in a 90s kind of action movie, but I really enjoy Black Manta, and I enjoyed Yahya's performance in this film. Now look, no comment on my opinion about the actor, but sticking to the role and the character they played, Amber Heard is in this movie a lot more than I was anticipating. And I say that because there were rumors, I'm not even talking about the trial stuff, but there were rumors that they went back and edited out some scenes, took out of the film, and from what I remember from the trial, even Amber Heard on the test, like on the stand, said that she was like, this trial is affecting my work and I wasn't in the middle. So all that stuff aside, she's in the movie a lot more than I was anticipating. Like, she's not in it as much as she was in the first one. Like, her character isn't as important to the plot as she was to the first one, but she's in it quite a bit, especially in certain points of this film. But again, just letting y'all know, I'm not going to change your mind. If you don't want to see this film because Amber Heard's in it, that's your prerogative. But again, for those who are like kind of on the fence about Amber Heard, it makes sense why her character is in the film. And again, just focus on the character. There are some badass moments from that character, but it also just makes logical plot sense that this mother whose child is in danger would be involved in this story, because it would be ridiculous for not to have the mother be involved in trying to do what they're doing with the mother and the whole thing. When you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It makes sense why she's in the movie as much as she's in. So take that as you will, but talking about my main point, my favorite performances, and the thing that kind of kept this messy train from going off the track, and that is the great chemistry from the two brothers, Orm and Aquaman, Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa. Now, I'll be honest, there are definitely some shades from my Thor Dark World fans out there. There are some moments where I'm like, their relationship kind of reminded me of that, the banter between Orm and Aquaman. It doesn't have the same emotional weight that Thor and Loki have, but it has that fun banter that they have in those movies, which I enjoyed. And just seeing them trying to figure out and overcome their differences and them working together other than circumstances really worked for me in this film. Individually speaking, I'm a big fan of Patrick Wilson, and he is another example of a character who's in this film and has to say and do some ridiculous things, and he plays it off well. Like, there's this running bit, literally running, of him, the character running, not knowing how to run, that I found to be hilarious. But also when Orm has to be a badass, he's being a badass. So I've always been a fan of Patrick Wilson. Like, I think he is just such a great actor, and he's really great in this role. But my man, gotta talk about Jason Momoa as Aquaman. He's bringing his personality into this role as he's done before. It's filled with laughs and charm and charisma, and he's just having fun in the role, and I respect that about Jason. Like, he's not stretching his acting chops. Like, he's being Jason Momoa, which I'm a fan of him. So those are some great things as far as the performances go. But talking about that action in this film, which is something that I'm a big fan of, I don't think Wan gets enough credit for how he's able to handle the action, and honestly how he brought the underworld action sequences to the big screen in such a fascinating, fun, and interesting way, and how he used these characters' powers and skills and craft some truly entertaining, thrilling and action sequences. So I was a fan of 95% of the action because it's clean, it's crisp, it makes sense of why someone would do this and how they can use their powers here. Like truly some awesome, flat out, dope as hell scenes, especially when you have Black Manta versus Aquaman. They have their tridents going back and forth. Like there is some legit awesome action sequences in this movie. But look, the movie does have its flaws. Get into my criticisms, but starting off with my nitpicks first, there were some logical things that just doesn't make sense to me, but I didn't want to spend too much time on thinking about it because it wouldn't make sense if you think about it more. But for example, Aquaman can talk and communicate to fish, and there is this idea in the film that Black Manta is kind of gone off the radar. We can't find him. Aquaman, you got a bazillion billion fishes and creatures as you can communicate to send out a bird. Where is he? But they didn't, and it's like that's a superhero trope where it's just like, why isn't the superhero using their best abilities in this matter? So that's, again, it's a nitpick. It's a small thing that kind of bothered me. But also another example that comes to mind is, where the hell was Willem Dafoe? Now, I know behind the scenes, logically, I know what happened. It was like some scheduling issues, so he wasn't able to be in the movie. But the way the film handles the absence of the character, to me, was just kind of lazy. And if I'm being honest, kind of, quite frankly, ridiculous. Why he wasn't in this film. It's like, if you blink, you're going to miss it. And when you actually see why he's not in the movie, kind of silly, if you ask me. But last thing on my nitpicks, I thought most of the CGI was pretty clean. Not as clean as the first, but there were some noticeable moments that looked incomplete and rushed. Again, those things didn't really affect my score, but there were things that I was like, this is kind of annoying. Again, little nitpicks. But now getting into my real criticism, starting off with the narrative in this film is all over the place. It's trying to be a film about global warming, about fatherhood, about being a king, about being a husband, a brother, all while trying to stop this evil being or this evil entity from taking over the world. The film definitely suffers from being bloated and not spending enough time to let you breathe or develop the plots and the subplots, which in result makes it feel short-sighted because they're not fully developed. So there's definitely some issues there. There's some pacing issues in the second half that really stand out like a sore thumb. Which, speaking of, there is a lot of comedy, and listen, I think comic book movies and comedies go hand in hand. Like, you gotta have fun. Again, I mentioned it's like a Saturday morning cartoon. But I'll be honest, I love you, James Wan, but comedy isn't his best attribute as a director. Like, I feel like the way James Wan handles comedy in the Aquaman world, I'll just leave it to that. And even I think of Fast, like, I don't think he's a good comedic director. Like, I don't think he has great comedic timing, and it just feels like Michael Bay comedy to me, especially in this film. Like, a lot of the jokes fall completely flat. Again, comedy is subjective, but I didn't find this film to be funny at all. And I say that because it takes the lowest common denominator and spends so much time and energy trying to find the funny, but they're just stupid jokes in my opinion. Moving on to the movie, to me, feeling emotionally empty at points. Not once did I feel like these characters were actually in trouble or gonna die. And unfortunately, that lack of empathy and compassion for the characters really hit me at the worst possible moment. No spoilers, but this isn't a trailer. There's a moment where things are really hitting the fan and, people are like, where is this particular character? And there's like a slow motion shot. And instead of for it to being like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I laughed at that scene. Again, you'll know it when you see the film. Again, it's when someone goes missing. I'll just say that it was meant to be sad, depressing, dramatic. I just couldn't help myself but to laugh. And that just goes to the part of, like, for negatives, they didn't do enough to make me care for the emotional resonance within this narrative. Now, I'm personally not a fan of villains being possessed, and I don't like when they do that in the films because to me it takes away the plot, and a lot of times it just doesn't work for me. And unfortunately, they do that in this film where Black Manta has his own motivations. His father died, so we could have just went with that, had the brothers coming together to stop him, but instead we have this villain who I don't even remember the name of the villain with the Lost Kingdom. It's a Lord of the Rings looking type of villain. And there are some moments where I'm like, visually it looks cool of what the villain brings to the story, but the actual plot and what it does to the movie to me just felt like it was undercooked. And when we got those scenes, that's when the movie had these huge exposition dumps, which to me just took away from, like, again, the entertainment factor. Again, a lot of the pacing and the issues I have with the pacing is all due to when we get to that whole Lost Kingdom and the Lord of the Rings villain. The weakest part of the film is in those moments. And lastly, this is the end of the DCEU, and knowing all that and how the film and the universe all ends, and just looking at a big picture perspective, I'm kind of sad. I'm underwhelmed by, again, this is the end of the DCU. I know crazier things have happened. You know, Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Michael Keaton, George Clooney. I mean, wild things, the Snyder Cut, wild things happening within this genre. But again, with this being the end of the DCEU for now, it's just underwhelming. Like, I would have loved to have seen, you know, the Justice League come together one last time. But again, I just brought that up because it doesn't really affect my score of the film. It's just something as a fan of the universe and a fan of these characters. It's sad to see it in this manner. But with all that being said, those are my main pros, my nitpicks, my criticisms. I want to take this moment to thank you all for making it to this point of review. I really appreciate you all. Do your boy a favor. If you haven't already, consider hitting the like button, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and also consider sharing this video to anyone and everyone you know that might be interested in seeing this film. But also consider subscribing to the channel. With all that being said, overall, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a buffet of a film. Regardless of its merits or shortcomings, there are some references to some of my favorite films like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and there's even moments of Thor: The Dark World that can be found in this film. I'm a fan of James Wan, and Wan's full imagination is at its finest when it's unleashed, and his capacity to bring Aquaman's world to life is truly spectacular. Now, the story, which to me can be both empty and exciting, is enriched by the great chemistry between Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson, who are brothers trying to overcome their differences. Now, I don't think this film is as terrible as it's being presented out there right now, but it does summarize the entire experience with this dysfunctional franchise as the DCEU comes to an end. I'm going to give Aquaman the Lost Kingdom a 3 out of 5. Again, for my personal taste, I had fun when the film wanted me to have fun. I could ignore some of the shortcomings. There's some things I couldn't ignore, but I was entertained for the most part. Again, there's more positives for me in this film than is negatives, and that's why, again, right in the middle, 3 out of 5 for me. I would say if you're a DCEU fan, if you're an Aquaman fan, or even a Jason Momoa fan, go give this a watch, and when you do, let me know your thoughts on it. But before we wrap up, let me do this live, matter of fact. So let me share my screen and pull up my Letterboxd here, which, by the way, you should follow me on Letterboxd. I post there a lot. But this is my DCEU rankings here. So as you all can see, this is all the 15 films. Let me go ahead and search Aquaman. So there it is, Aquaman there. We're going to go ahead and add to my list. We're going to go here. We're going to add it. We're going to go back to that list. See, it just went here. So let's go ahead and edit this bad boy. So I'm going to grab it and we're going to move on up. Let's see. We're going to go right here. So there it is. This is my official ranking, as you all can see, from number 1 to number 16, with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom coming in at number 10, which you can also see I enjoyed the first one better than the second one. But there it is. That is my ranking. Make sure, again, to share yours in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching today's review. Again, let me know your likes, your dislikes, your overall experience with the DCEU, your rankings in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching today's review. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing to the channel. Also, check out my most recent reviews. Check out my DCEU playlist. You all are awesome. Hope you're staying safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.